All right, so I'm Tara. I am a divine feminine. I met my twin flame a couple of years ago and started a whole separate journey compared to what I was used to before as far as spirituality and healing. And I met Heather, and her and I hit it off. We didn't really talk a whole lot at first, and then once we got deeper into the journey, we just got closer and closer and realized we were helping each other out a lot, kind of work through the different shifts in energy. And so we came up with this idea to start this podcast because we have many, many, many conscious conversations. And we wanted to kind of get the conversation going with other divine feminines to help raise our vibration and help keep going on our journey to raise the feminine energy.
Awesome. I'm Heather. I started my journey about, 5 years ago, 6 years ago now. That's kind of when my twin actually helped me awaken, and he kind of was my trigger for that. And yeah, Tara and I talk every single day. And we figured we'd start recording our conversations and documenting them because we feel like they need to be shared with everyone and let other divine feminines know that, even divine masculines know that they're not alone, and get the perspective from both sides. And kind of see how far we've gotten, and now you can join us with the rest of our journey and see how we change and evolve over time. So
okay, so do we want to stop the recording and then start a separate one, or do we want to just keep going on this one and just edit them out?
Yeah, that's fine. We can just edit it out.
Just keep doing that. Okay. All right, so for our first topic, we wanted to talk about religion versus spirituality. I know a lot of people have been deterred by spirituality along the way because just everything with religion has kind of shunned it and made it seem like a bad thing. And for us, we both kind of had different paths as far as that growing up. Okay, we're gonna have to edit this.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine.
I'm just trying to think of, do we want to go into our individual paths, or do we want to start out with maybe going to our individual paths and then we can come back to the whole umbrella thing?
Yeah, that's fine.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So for myself, I never really related to church and religion. I've gone a few times and it never felt like it fit right. It didn't make sense to me. And so along my journey, I was really disconnected spiritually. It wasn't until when I was a teenager and I attempted suicide that I had a conversation with my spirit guides. And that's what kind of woke me up to there's so much more than what we're even aware of. And so over the years, I just kept deepening my spiritual practice more and more, and connecting and evolving as far as my beliefs and my awareness of everything that's out there. And it wasn't, I started realizing within the last year or so that my disconnect with, well, for one, with religion, it's kind of like it puts you in a box and it feels very limiting. And then with the whole masculine, I had a lot of healing to do around masculine energy just because of all of my experiences that I've had with getting hurt by masculines. And so for me, with religion and the focus on Jesus Christ, who is a male, I did not connect with that very well. And I just kind of ran from it. And now that I've gone so far in my journey, it actually helped me come back around to have that connection with Jesus. However, I still don't feel that connection with religion and the church, just because it feels like it is very limiting.
Well, yeah, and even you're helping me with that a little bit more. I'm opening up to just even the thought of Jesus because of how I grew up. My mom married into this Russian Orthodox family that they converted me really with no choice. I was converted over to that religion. And like nuns would teach me like their beliefs and whatnot. And they were very, when you think of nuns, it's like they're just strict and hit you with the ruler and things like that. And that's pretty much what happened.
Mhm.
And so her father-in-law was a priest for this, and he ran this church, and his wife also, like, they were very by the book, and if you did not believe what they believed, you were going to hell. And it just never felt comfortable to me. Even like when I would go to church, like with my friends, like they always went every Sunday with their families, and it just like never settled right with me either. And I got my first like tarot reading when I was 14, 12 or 14 with my stepmom, and she kind of introduced me to that whole side of, spirituality. And I would go like once a year until she'd take me once a year just for fun. She always said not to take it to heart and never to take it seriously, but I'm like, well, there's a little bit more to that too. So I kind of got both sides growing up. Except I didn't really know the bigger picture. I just thought tarot readings was the only thing to spirituality when I was younger, because
Mhm.
she didn't know anything past that either. So I kind of had a little bit of both when my stepmom came into the picture. But because of the Russian Orthodox family, I got very turned away from religion for the longest time. And I'm still, I'm not really one for going to church and things like that. I've kind of turned to more like the pagan points of view.
Mhm.
I believe both, spirituality and those aspects and the pagan beliefs. So
Yeah. Yeah. And for me too, that's kind of where I geared towards growing up too. Like when I was a teenager, I kind of got brought down that route with the tarot readings and the more of the pagan beliefs. And I still believe in a lot of it. And that's what I think a lot of people don't realize when it comes to religion is they think like it's either this or that. It can't be both. And that's what I've learned with spirituality is it's like all encompassing. It has like we've talked about it as being like an
mhm.
umbrella. So like up at the top, you have like spirituality, you're connected to source. We all come from source and many different names, God, and
Mhm.
they call them different things in other religions. And then the different parts of the umbrella come down, and that's where you have your different religions. So for me, it's like for a long time, I did kind of identify more as like the witchy pagan route. And I've just noticed as I've done more growing, I'm like, even that feels limiting to me. I feel
Mhm.
like we're so much more than that.
Right. Yep. And I agree completely. Um like I believe both, and it's not a lot of people talk about that.
Hmm.
Like it's either you're this or you're that. Well,
Yeah.
no, not really, because I'm starting to warm up to the Jesus,
Hmm.
see me growing up, I had a very big issue with the feminine energies and things like that. Like I
Hmm.
didn't have it was very conflicting and growing
Yeah.
up. And so I had a lot of like more masculine role models and stability there when it came to masculine people in my life, and
Yeah.
as opposed to like feminine.
Yeah.
Like even when I was a kid, I had more guy friends than
Yeah.
females, because it's just I couldn't connect to them on that level. It's
Yeah.
just from childhood traumas and things like that.
Hmm.
So I believe that where it doesn't matter what religion you are, like you
Hmm.
can pray, you can do rituals, or
Yeah.
whatever, you're still trying to connect to something
Hmm.
else. And it doesn't really matter, it's all connecting to the same thing. Even like gods and goddesses, or
Hmm.
Jesus, they're deities.
Yeah.
But Jesus, I feel like, is very um when it comes to like the twin flame journey.
Hmm.
And Mary, you've been showing me more how to connect with them in that way, and it's kind of
Yeah.
more softening me up to it, because I was so closed off to that for so long because of how I grew up.
Yeah. And I know, and I like having this conversation because like we said already, it's been so closed off and with the way people are thinking. And I think it's important for people who are kind of on that fence, like they don't know where to
Mhm.
turn, and to realize it's okay to have all of it and to evolve with all of it and to think outside of that box. Like, and I know some people are, kind of targeted when they talk like on TikTok and stuff like that, when they talk
Mhm.
about they're a Christian witch. And a lot of
Mhm.
people will kind of go, well, you can't be Christian and a witch. And it's like, well, first of all, that's limiting. Like you don't know where they're at and you can't say that. And I always think back, I'm like, what would you have called Jesus if he existed right now? Or if you were back then, even like, and you saw him doing the things that they've talked about that he can do, what would you call him?
You
And
call him a witch.
yeah, exactly. And people are so thrown off, like when I bring that up. And for
Mhm.
some reason, they want to think that only Jesus could have done those things. And it's like, if you lived back then, you probably would have persecuted him exactly like he was. And he was doing those things like to show us how to do them. Like, this is how we evolve our Christ consciousness. And this is how we ascend. And I know like so many people talk about too how um like, oh, Jesus is returning.
Mhm.
And that narrative just doesn't fit for me. And as I'm deep in my spirituality, I realize like we're ascending to be at his level. Like he's not coming back
Yeah,
here.
not
Why would
come
he?
down.
He would have to dense his energy
Mhm.
and lower his vibration to come back down here. That's not our goal. Like our goal is to raise our vibration and raise our consciousness and become more aware and more on his level. And so um I just I feel
And that's
like,
a
oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
And that's another thing too is where I get really conflicted. And I've also heard TikTok seems to be like the reference for everything
Yeah.
because there's just so much information out there and you don't know
Mhm.
what to believe.
Yeah.
Like because there's just so much controversy and conflict. And if I do start making videos and stuff, I'm not going to put. I'm debating on even putting the comments available on there.
Yeah.
Like I might shut them off for a while until I attract the right crowd,
Yeah.
and then weed out the ones that don't resonate or negative or whatever.
Yeah.
But like with Jesus and like any other deity, people need to realize that you should not be worshiping them. It's
Yes.
no different. It's a tool. Like it's
Mhm.
in not in a negative way, but they're used for us to help us ascend.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
You
They're
should not be worshiping anybody.
exactly.
So
They're like a guide. It's like a tour guide. Like this is how you get there. This is our goal and this is how you get there. And like I went to church with somebody one day and um that was an interesting experience in itself. It's been quite a while since I stepped foot in a church. And he knows I'm spiritual and he even made jokes about like, oh, are you gonna start on fire? And I was like, no, like me and Jesus are pals, we're good, you know. But like as I'm listening, and I mean, no disrespect to the church or like what they were trying to preach and everything, but just what they were saying, I was like, I don't feel like you're interpreting this correctly.
mhm.
They're talking about being disciples and spreading God's word. And I'm like, but you don't understand. You're not where Jesus was. Like you weren't at his level that he was. So like you're trying to preach to him without connecting to him, if that
Mhm.
makes sense, like what I'm saying.
They're
And
going off of a book that was rewritten by many people who never even met him.
yeah,
it's
well,
it's hit it's using Jesus in the church as a hidden agenda. Like
yes,
it's for their own doing. It's You should be working with Jesus, not for him.
yes,
And when people think, oh, I'm working for him, they're using there's going to be people like the priest when I
yeah,
grew up, for instance, using it to their advantage
yeah.
to control people.
It's a very egoic energy. I noticed.
Hmm.
And even when he was speaking, he was talking about like, oh, there was like this traumatic place on this island. It was like a tsunami or something like that. And that was God's way of getting us there to spread his word. And I'm sitting there thinking, God wants you to go help them. That's what God wants when these situations occur. Like, he's not creating these disasters for you to go spread his word. Like,
Keep talking. I'm going to mute myself. Keep talking.
okay. And, you know, he's not creating these situations for you to go spread his word. He is giving you the ability to go help them in a time of need. And that was my take on it anyways. And just the way just the way he got kind of excited about it. Like, oh, we get to go do this. And for me, it's like, okay, this is a traumatic experience for these people. Completely traumatic. It is nothing to be excited about. Like, I felt like it completely lacked compassion. Like, when Jesus went to go help people, he didn't say like, oh my gosh, I get to help you. Like, God created this situation for you so I can come help you. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly the vibe that I was getting when I was listening to this preacher talk at the church. And it just, to me, lacked a lot of compassion. And it was a very egoic energy. And to me, that's because you're reading this book, you're not necessarily interpreting the meaning behind it correctly. And then you're doing it in a way that makes you feel good about yourself.
Okay, I'm back.
That's okay.
Okay. Yeah, and I feel like that has to like with priests and stuff, that just from who I've met and what I've heard, it is that's a big challenge for them in their own journey, is when they go down that path is, okay, are you going to use this to your advantage? Like, I've seen a lot, not all of them, I'm not saying all of them, but are you going to use it to your own advantage to get people to obey you? Or are you actually going to try and help them get to that higher level of consciousness like we all are?
Yeah.
That's when it's like that umbrella effect.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where, like, you know, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't think this, you know, he was a bad person. I think his intentions are good. But that's what I mean, where it's very limiting, because they're not doing the deeper work. They're not deepening their practice. It's a very surface level situation. And I feel like that's
logic.
It's limiting their growth. They're not looking at the deeper. They're like, okay, I can make my life great on the surface level, and I'm going to go and help all these other people, and that's going to make me feel better. And they're getting help that they need, but it's still super surface level. It's not getting that deeper consciousness that we're all trying to ascend to.
Right. And I always had an issue with like, just the thing, like, I believe that there is a certain truth to the stories, or it's just trying to gain a better perspective of real life situations now.
Yeah.
There was this one church that I went to in a town I used to live in, and was I comfortable? Not exactly, but the stories that he would tell and explain to people, it was meant to uplift them and make them, you know, have a better understanding of, you know, being in that, I don't really know, like lightness.
Yeah.
The light, not, you know, oh, you're gonna do, if you do this, you're, you know, if you disobey this rule and that rule and that rule, then you're damned for all eternity.
Yeah.
When this certain priest, he was telling stories and to incorporate real life situations to make people realize like, hey, like, people make mistakes and it's okay. But it's the whole point of he was telling the story to It's no different than like a meditation
Mhm.
where you're trying to rise your vibration, and that was what he was trying to do. They're not
Yeah.
all bad.
No.
Like the point is like it doesn't matter what religion exactly. It's when you're rising your vibration, and we're all
Yeah.
rising it to, a common denominator.
Yeah.
And that's what's
Yeah.
important. Not I'm gonna, try and get my way
Yeah.
and say, if you don't do what I say, you're going to hell. Like that's
Yeah.
not okay.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's all like that part of it's all about power and control, which is why it always turned me off. Like something always felt off with me in it.
Mhm.
And like I was reading the Celestine prophecy, and in that the church didn't want the prophecy released. And the whole prophecy is about going through these different cycles and growing consciously from them. And as we're doing that, we're raising our vibration and we're more in line with the loving energy that Jesus was. But the church didn't want that released because they're like, well, then they're going to go ahead and people aren't going to respect the power of God. And then they're going to do all these bad things. Well, no, they're not, because as they're raising their vibration, they're more aligned with loving energy.
Mhm.
And this is how we move forward. So that's like another example about, just kind of like that idea of that whole situation completely resonated. And as like another example of like how it can be very limiting. And you don't have to go through all these different ways to raise your vibration. I mean, heck, like reading through all those different insights all made sense, because I'm like, we've gone through these so many times. We've gone through all of them unconsciously. But now that we're consciously aware of them, we can grow so much more beyond that and at a faster rate.
Yeah, I just got that book today and I'm excited to read it.
I know.
I swear,
So
I think you read like half of it to me already.
I think so. I was like joking with my mom. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I read most of it to Heather already. Like she's gonna read it and like know everything already.
I'm like, heard that already.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited to read it.
It is such a good story, but it's like just all of it makes so much sense and completely resonates.
And there's a lot of books that I think you and I both have read so far that what is very helpful. Like my favorite is The Alchemist. That's my favorite book. When it comes to a spiritual aspect of things, I read it in a day. It was amazing. Granted, it's not that long, but I just got so sucked into it. So I'm really excited to read it. So